Hello and welcome to TelecomTV. We are in Dublin, in Ireland, at a place called Croke Park, which is the headquarters of the Gaelic Athletic Association, and we're in a very nice, in fact very impressive, executive boardroom, which in Irish I am told is Cushta Barashti, so I don't know whether my pronunciation is any good or not, but that's my effort. I'm talking with an old friend, Marie-Paul Odini, who is Distinguished Technologist, NFV and SDN at Hewlett-Packard Enterprise. Marie-Paul, welcome. Good to see you.
Good to see you, Martin. I'm not going to try the Irish.
Well, I had to ask and get it, do it phonetically. We'll see. I'll get some abuse if it's wrong. Marie-Paul, after the initial excitement, we've been doing this since NFV 4, so we know a good deal about it now at TelecomTV. And after the excitement of the announcement of NFV and then the POCs, proofs of concept, and then the field trials, and then some limited but small commercial rollouts, it seems to many people that the take-up of NFV has been rather slow, or slower than expected, and partial. Has it, do you think, been taking longer than expected? And if so, why? For example, what I'm thinking about here, is it because service providers have been rather more cautious than vendors thought they would be?
Okay, that's an interesting perspective. I actually have a slightly, different one, because to me, when we engaged on NFV, it was like the big revolution. And so you had to really get service provider to endorse that and move forward, to this big shift in the infrastructure, in the way of operating and so on. You had to also get the vendors on board to, decouple their products, to get into a new engineering, practice and so on. And we saw lots of resistance at first. We discussed that in NFV4 and so on. And so I mean, even though there were lots of marketing hype, as you say, and some people were expecting things to happen very quickly, I was kind of not sure that this would happen that quickly. And now, if you look at it, really, if you look at the service provider, the big names, I've shared that very clearly. They have, totally embraced the fact that they decouple, the hardware virtualization infrastructure from the network function and move to pure, full software type of network services and so on. If you look at the vendors, even though there was some resistance, initially, now, all of them are on board and they have, issued products which are virtualized and so on. They embrace the ETSI work, they come to ETSI and so on. So I think the industry is really moving forward and implementing that industry shift, and deployments are happening. Deployments of virtualized infrastructure are definitely happening and have happened. So-called telco cloud, new services that are being deployed, new functions that are being deployed, in most cases are virtualized. So it's not like we have the full-blown NFV architecture being deployed yet, and this will take some time. The interfaces need probably to be a bit more standardized, a bit more refined, to have full interoperability and in a kind of multi-vendor integrated way, orchestrated and so on. But I would say that today most of the services are virtualized. The next step is really to get into this automation and multi-vendor type of environment. But I'm pretty pleased with the way it is today.
Well, it's interesting to hear. I'm glad. This isn't meant to be dismissive anyway, or saying that NFV is not moving. I just think the expectations seem to have been greater originally, and the other thing we don't know what the service providers are doing. They don't come out. They never have done in their 100+ year history. They've never come out and told anybody what they're actually doing. So they could be working away in the background, and we wouldn't necessarily know.
Absolutely. There are certain things that they disclose for some reason, but others that they don't. And if I speak on, with my ETSI hat now, this is exactly what we face in ETSI NFV. Initially we were given by our chairman the objective to have some metrics to measure our success. And to me, one of the best metrics would be to get operators deployment list, or communications. And it's been very hard to get. I mean, we've asked, the NOC, we've asked, service providers, and they don't want to produce this list, which would be, I think, very interesting for the market. But of course, there are, competition out there and so on, and so it's very difficult.
So nobody's going to give away a potential competitive advantage.
And even vendors, we are on the non-disclosure, so it's not like, we're going to disclose that ourselves. So.
Okay, so things are moving underneath it all. Things are moving forward. Now, Marie-Paule, manufacturers have been collaborating and partnering in the build-out of big open vendor ecosystems. And ecosystems we hear all the time. In fact, I was talking to Don Clark earlier, and he was saying if you go back to the original ETSI origination of NFV, ecosystems were mentioned everywhere in those initial documents. What now do those ecosystems look like, do you think? How important are they? And what has the response been from the service providers to the notion of those ecosystems?
Yeah, that's, today it's key. As you said, it was the baseline of NFV, opening up, the infrastructure, opening up to multi-vendor and so on. And to make this multi-vendor environment to work, you need to have, partnership in place. You need to validate, integration. Speed and agility is also a big element of NFV, and to be able to achieve that, reduce, time to deploy, reduce risk. This pre-validation integration is critical. So as you know, a number of vendors, and HP is well known for that. We have this open NFV program, and partnership program, and we have built these labs. So we have these 5 labs in different geographies, and we are doing pre-validation. I think we've had 60 pre-validation so far, and we have announced also this open NFV portal, where you can actually search, pre-validated functions, and it will be demonstrated at Mobile World Congress next week with some live deployment, 15 of them, I think, on all 5. So this is, to us, this is critical. This is important for us, as I've said, to make sure that we interoperate with these different vendors, that we propose solutions that we know will work, we reduce our risk, we reduce our time, to actually project deployments. And for the service provider, it's also, a guarantee that, this is something that has been pre-tested and that has a good chance to work. So I think service providers really buy into it. They even, do also some pre-validation in their own environment, because it's always, related to, HP, we do that because we have, products that we want to make sure that, vendors integrate with, like our Helion CarrierGrade, our NFV orchestrator, NFV director, and so on. And operators also have their existing environment, their, telco cloud and all these kind of things. So at each stage, I think this open lab, is quite critical. Definitely, yeah.
Thank you. One of the things that surprised me over the past few months has been this notion of CarriergradeNFE. As I understood it, as many people understood it, NFV, Network Functions Virtualization, is a global overarching technology that is applicable across the world. So what is CarriergradeNFE, and how does it differ from any other kind of NFV?
Well, I would say that NFV, of course, NFV is being used sometimes a bit loosely and so on, but the way it's been defined, at least in ETSI, it's focused on service provider market, on carriers network. And as you know, lots of these functions are critical. They have strong SLA, they have some requirements in terms of latency, all these kind of things, and so you need to have, an environment, especially on the infrastructure, that is very reliable. You have all your services running on this common infrastructure. So, this is like, the maximum risk if you don't pay attention to it. And so the point about, moving to NFV was indeed to leverage IT technologies, so virtualization, common off-the-shelf servers, these type of things, as much as possible. But on the other side, it's also to meet the requirements of this market, which is pretty demanding in terms of reliability and performance. And so this carrier grade NFV, or in HP terms, it's our HP Helion OpenStack carrier grade, right?
Yep.
Which is interesting because it embraces both the OpenStack, open source. It's not just NFV; it's also open source, OpenStack, with this carrier grade item, which is kind of putting the best worlds together, like the flexibility, the open source, the NFV aspects of virtualization IT. But keeping, the carrier grade. So that includes, carrier grade at the Linux level, at the KVM level, making sure that you have all the HA capabilities and the proper packaging, all of that, to meet this type of requirements.
Thank you. That's made it a lot clearer. Thank you. Now then, the business transformation that goes hand in hand with technology transformation and the emergence of the virtualized network shows that a lot of operators, not all of them, but a lot of operators actually lack the skill sets that are necessary to manage the whole transformation process efficiently and quickly. It's pretty evident that they need new blood specialists to come from somewhere to enable that to happen. So where are they going to come from, Marie-Paule, and how soon do you think they'll be up to speed and being effective?
Yeah, that's a discussion that I've had with a number of operators. So I would say that, they are taking actions, that's for sure, you know. They are taking actions to ramp up their existing employees. They have people, that need to evolve. That's one thing. And they're also hiring, some new people, especially in the software space, with software skills, with open source, kind of skills, so that they can contribute or participate in these activities, which are good learning exercise as well for them. And so we see more and more operators actually doing that. If you go to these development forums and open source activities, and I think it's a good way for them to to ramp up in terms of software virtualization, new continuous integration, DevOps, type of technologies. And processes as well. At the same time, they also, rely on vendors a lot for integration, and they learn from that. So yeah, I think it is happening. Yeah.
It is. It's underway.
Yeah, it's underway. It's probably going to take some time as well. It's not.
Well, none of these things happen overnight.
Because today they do that a lot to ramp up skills, to understand, how to shift, to this model. But then they will also need to ramp up skills in terms of operation. And
I think very often what happens, Marie-Paule, is that we get this notion that the transformation of a network is really quite simple, provided the technology is there. Well, it's not, because many of them, look at the size of the tier one service providers, tens of thousands of people, a culture that's ingrained for a century or more. They've been working in a certain way. Yeah. They've relied on hardwired, solid hardware in the ground. There it is. Now, to virtualize all that isn't just a matter of changing the technology, it's a matter of changing the mindset.
Yeah, and many things. We talk about operation, it's procurement as well. Before they had a few vendors, now it's multitude of vendors. Yeah. There are services that will be, on demand, on the fly, so it's also procurement to this type of business models.
So the supply chain is changing as well?
Yep.
Yeah, interesting. Now, final question to you. It's been said that network transformation and virtualization is like building a plane while you're flying it. So it's a tricky thing to do. Now, back in 2013, this company, TelecomTV, we conducted a survey which indicated, the results indicated that people thought it would take 2 to 3 years before we would see virtualization in carrier networks. I'm going to ask you the same question now, in February 2016. What estimate do you give now, Marie-Paule? Has it changed?
Okay, I think it would be good to survey the operators.
I agree with you. I agree.
But this comparison is interesting. So So you mean that you deploy NFV in a live network?
Yes.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely that's the case. And so that's why we see so many hybrid, type of environment where you have the legacy and you introduce virtualized functions. And it's true that you try to find use cases, that do not disrupt, live services. And there's a number of them, like, this virtually CP type of use case for new enterprise, which can be deployed without impacting too much the existing services, or some virtual EPC for dedicated services like machine-to-machine for connected cars. You can deploy a kind of dedicated virtual EPC without impacting your mobile core for mobile services. So we clearly see that. Now, the survey, I think it would be good to run another survey.
Well, we might do that.
Yeah,
But we were just interested in the interviewees here at ETSI. We were just thinking it'd be nice to hear what people think 3 years on, which is what this was designed to see, and see whether people have changed their minds or not. In the main, they haven't. They say it's a long road, but we will see in 2016, we will see more going on. There will be live deployments, and it's a progressive thing, an evolutionary thing, not a big bang.
Right. Yeah.
Which it was never going to be in the first place.
I think it is, but nevertheless, we got some pretty strong, announcement from some service provider that line up a plan and want to, really stick to the plan. So.
See, we might do that survey again.
Yeah.
Marie Polladini, as usual, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Martin.